Hi there, Henry from 911 Virgin, Porsche people in Uxbridge. Welcome to another video. The last video we did was a 991 GT3 RS, and in that video I mentioned this, which is a 3-litre SC, and this is a really special car. And I know I say that about quite a lot of the cars, but kind of that's why we're making videos on them, because they're, you know, the ones we pick out to make a video on, there's a reason for doing it. This car, Tom brought it in and said, you got to drive this car, it's the most amazing car I've ever driven, or words to that effect. I ignored him. He's a salesman. He says that every time, brings a car in, it's the best one until the next one, and that's the best one. I'm being a bit harsh, but I took it out for a drive and was stunned. Matt, who's behind the camera, he took it out for a drive. He was amazed. Dan took it out for a drive. He also was amazed. So why is it so good? People often say to me, what's your favourite Porsche? What's your favourite 911? And the answer is I haven't got one. I like different cars for different reasons, and different people want different things out of a Porsche. The experience they're looking for. Some people want, like the 991 GT3 RS, you know, that is one of the most capable cars on the planet. Some phenomenal components on it and amazing. This is a much more analog car. This is a classic car. So we've talked about what constitutes a classic Porsche against the modern cars. Personally, I've got a cut-off in 1989, so I see the 964 model forwards as being modern, and the 32 Carrera backwards as being the classic cars back to 1963. This started off life as a 1982 3-litre SC. The 3-litre SC preceded the 32 Carrera, and it actually wasn't the first of the impact bumpers. They did a 2.7, which was the first of the impact bumper cars. So you'll see this is not an impact bumper, it's a different front end. I'll get to that in a minute. It came in 3 engine variants. Just quickly pop round the back, Matt. I shall just, as we go along, we're going to shoot in the engine bay. I shall show you a secret of 3-litre SC engines. This is a rather lovely, I have to say, 3-litre SC engine. They came in 3 engine variants. They started off as 180, they then went to 188, and then they went to, God, I can't remember if it's 201, 203, 204, a little bit over 200 horsepower. You can always tell the fuel lines here. This, if it's a solid metal fuel line onto the injector, like this one is, then it's the higher powered car. You can see the fuel lines running down there. The lesser powered cars, they have a like a flexible fuel line. And another little part that this car's got, if you see this little part down here, this has got the later 32 Carrera hydraulic chain tension modification. It's something which people changed quite often, and it's a kind of fairly easy retrospectively fitted part. Anyway, there you go. I just thought I'd mention that as we go along. So power wise, it's the more powerful 20 whatever it is, 201.3, I can't remember, I'm getting old. However, this car has been modified, and again, we get offered quite a few cars that have had a bit of modification, and people, I don't know, some of them work, some of them don't work. I guess it depends what you're trying to do when you modify a car. As I get older, I'm interested in sort of exploring the core DNA of what a Porsche 911 is. And obviously this is a classic car, so it'll be the core DNA of a classic 911. when the 911 first came out in 1963, it was not devoid of a few handling issues. The engine obviously kind of is in the wrong place. The front end is quite light. The wheels were really skinny, and they had some kind of handling quirks. If it was Apple now, they would call it a feature. So they had some features, and then they gradually evolved the platform. The very early cars are short wheelbase cars. Again, if you just look here, you can see there's a torsion bar cover just sitting in there, and that gap there. So on the early cars, the wheel arch came to kind of there, and so they were short wheelbase. And then when the gap here increases, you can see that the wheelbase becomes longer, and so they then became longer wheelbase. That helped things along a bit, and they've kind of modified things as they went. So when someone sets out to create a kind of special and modified 911, I think they've got to say, okay, what is it I'm trying to achieve? Whether the person who did this had an end game in mind, I don't know. They've certainly spent a lot of money. They started off with what was actually quite a nice 3-litre SC, and usually when people kind of modify cars, they often start out with quite a average car, and that's the catalyst. As they're doing it all up, they say, well, I might as well change bits on it. But this wasn't that bad. It was taken back to bare metal, and one of the things they have done is they've lightened it. So it's got lightweight doors, it's got lightweight windows all round, it's got lightweight wings, bonnet, and you'll see the bumpers, you've got lightweight bumpers. So the front bumper, for instance, is actually quite a heavy unit. You've got a aluminium cross member on the actual bumper part of it. So the weight of the car has come down to about 1,000 kilos, which is a significant saving. And interestingly, that takes it back to more or less what a 911 was when it was first introduced in 63. I can't remember what the exact weight of a 63 car is. Get on Google, it'll tell you. It'll be about 1,000 kilos. And so that I think, was it Colin Chapman said, the only thing you should add to a car is lightness. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And many of the modifications that are made, and even on modern cars you can buy, for instance, the carbon ceramic brakes, yes, they've got good stopping power, but it reduces the unsprung weight significantly. And so a lot of the things, again, the 991 GT3 RS that we looked at, lightweight panels that had wings, bonnet, and had a magnesium roof. So the wings and the bonnet are carbon fibre, and at a price, the wings on that I think they're 11,500, 12,500 pounds each wing, or fender if you're American, and the front bonnet I think was something in the order of 20,000 pounds. So and it's interesting that whoever's done this car has chosen some really nice suppliers. They've kind of gone around the world almost and said, okay, well, the best people for the wings are the composite panels are this, for the windows are this, and so they've thought very carefully about their choice of kind of suppliers. They've then gone through and looked at suspension, the wheels. If you actually have a look here, these are quite sort of unusual wheels, in that they're a slightly deeper dish than standard, so you get a slightly wider wheel. The tyre choice, so you've got a 205, the 205 50 16s, no, 205 45 16, so a slightly lower profile than you would have as standard. I think these came with a 225 50 16s on the back and 205, maybe they were 45s. That could be a standard size. And what have we got on the rears on this one? We have 245 45 16s, so that I think I'm right in saying is probably a turbo size tyre and a deeper dish. So you've got a little bit more kind of rubber on there. You've got a cage in the car or kind of roll bars, and that's going to give the car a bit of extra torsional rigidity. You can see you've got in the back, you've got it's all kind of triangulated in essence. So you've got the rear part of the cage, and then in the front you've got this little beam coming down here, and then a hoop which goes over the front section. It's something which obviously for race cars you'd have for safety, but in the case of this car, this isn't intended as a kind of road car. Sorry, it isn't intended to go racing. It's always going to be a road car. It's got harnesses in, so it'll give you support if you want them. But also, because of the weight saving, you've then added a bit of weight with the roll cage. But because so much has been taken out, things like the doors, for instance, you save a lot of weight if you fit composite doors to a car, and so the car doesn't suffer for having the roll cage. And then in the front end you can see again quite a kind of complex strut bracing system on here. Very often you'll see cars which have just a strut brace across hit there. This has actually gone full diagonal to give a bit of extra rigidity in there as well. So and you can see the underside of the composite bonnet there. So it's had modification. Oh, no, the other thing on this, again, the headlights on the early cars are shocking, is probably the word. You kind of, you turn them on and it's almost like you've come back after a night out on the tile and you've got these bloodshot eyes and you're trying to see things on a Sunday morning. That's got proper Lightronic lights, and not just with Lightronic bulbs. There are actually individual headlights set in there. Very nice option on those. So it's had a lot of things done to it, and the sum total of those is or resultant in the drive. So let's go out for a drive and see what it's like on the road. So we're sitting in the car. As I said earlier, this for me it's all about the driving experience, this car, and I think this is the core DNA of an early classic 911. I think if you could have put Ferdinand Porsche in this car in 1963 and said, there you go, drive that round the Gerrards Cross bypass, he'd have said, Mr. Henry, thank you very much, I'll base my whole company around this car. And that's a kind of bold statement to make, but with older cars, with older Porsches, sometimes you kind of get in them and they just, I don't know, the steering maybe isn't quite as sharp as you might want it to be, and I'm kind of being unfair really, because I'm saying that from 2021, where the 911 has evolved quite a long way, and the last video we made was that 991 GT3 RS, which was chalk and cheese between a 1963, 73, 83 911. The evolution is spectacular. So maybe I'm being a little bit harsh, but you get in a classic 911 and they just feel, I don't know whether soft is the wrong word, but not as sharp as they might do. And so to try and counter that, people stiffen them up, but then they become a bit stiff, a bit harsh, a bit uneducated. This isn't any of those things. We've seen it's got a good sort of tough body shell in terms of torsional rigidity because of the roll cage and the front bracing and so on. But it's got sound insulation in it still. You know, they haven't just ripped it out and it's all tingy and rattly. You know, it's actually quite quiet in here, and you know, the suspension is it's firm, but it's not crashy, it's not harsh, it's very compliant still, and that's a real kind of treat. You know, that makes it a really enjoyable car. This is a car which we were talking with Matt, who was doing the filming, and he said it's a sort of car you'd set your alarm early on a Sunday to take it out for a drive. You actually want to get in it and drive it. And he's very true. I'm kind of quite excited about being in here and having another chance to drive it, because, you know, when I drove it and it first came in, I just sat in it afterwards, and I was just sat there, you know, in silence, just kind of thinking about what I'd experienced. And that probably sounds just either, I don't know, stupid, arrogant, just, you know, I mean, get a life, it's a bloody car, for Christ's sake. But there's just something about some cars, and this is one of them, that if you like your cars, I guess it's like a fine wine. If you into your fine wines and you have a particular favourite, and you know, it's that inner feeling of satisfaction. For me, this car was it. And it's quite hard for me to put into words why I felt that. You know, there's some ingredients. I'm in a harness. I'm you know, bolted in. I've got an old school bucket seat I'm sat in, and I can, you know, it's got a harsh base of the seat, and they do say you kind of feel a car through your bottom. Well, you know, my bottom's being forced into the seat, and I, you know, so I can absolutely feel what the car's doing. But then that potentially is a problem, because if the car's not doing quite what I want it to, I'll feel it. So yeah, you know, it has to be good at what it's doing, and this is. So gearbox wise, 5-speed gearbox. This has got the 915 gearbox in it. I can't remember if we talked about the gearboxes when we did the 3.2 Carrera. Early cars have 915 gearboxes. In 1986 model year, I think, they changed them into the G50 gearbox. And kind of traditionally you would say, well, G50 is a better gearbox than the 915. I think that's being a little bit harsh. A lot of the 915 gearboxes people will drive are old and tired, and the synchro rings, the dog teeth are all worn, and so they're not particularly nice gearboxes. But when they're in good fettle, when they've been rebuilt and they're as they should be, there's nothing wrong with a 915 gearbox. And a lot of the guys that race classic 911s actually choose to use a 915 gearbox car. So there's no problems with the 915 box, and this is really precise. You know, it takes a bit of sort of force to get it into the gear, and you don't bang them through the gears. It's just an assertive process, and it's a slightly slower gear change than some gearboxes would allow you to. But even the G50 gearbox, it's not something that you bang it and throw it through the gears. You do it sort of in stages, and you kind of take your time to change gears. So 915 box, really nice. Power wise, we discussed earlier, 204 I think it is brake horsepower in this car. You know, it's a very manageable amount of power. So, you know, I don't feel as though the car's running away with me. It's one of those things, and I will hark back to this quite a lot in the videos, really, as you know, I go through my journey of kind of 911 ownership. You know, I'm trying to explore and see, you know, what you need power wise to have fun, and for a car to be enjoyable and to work well on the road. And you know, this is definitely not the most powerful Porsche I've ever driven. The 991 Turbo S we made a video of, I mean, that was immensely powerful. You know, that was to the point where you kind of put your foot down to experience some acceleration, and you've got to take it off pretty quickly because you're going to break the speed limit. Whereas with this car, you know, I can accelerate for a while, and I'm not going to be in danger of breaking the speed limit by too much. So, you know, you can actually use it and have some fun. You don't feel as though you're holding off the throttle all the time. You also have to put this car into context. So, it's a 1982 car. The SC came out in 78, well, I think 79, 78 probably. So, you know, see what was around at the time. 1970s cars were crap. I mean, they were really shonky, horrible things. And even if you look at the kind of supercars of the day, you know, the comparison to this might be a Ferrari 308. Well, a Ferrari 308 had, again, it was, you know, 200 and something, I think 217 maybe horsepower. So, you know, that's what you got in cars in those days. Because this car's only 1,000 kilos, you know, it's a really good balance of power and weight. So it works really, really well in that sense. It's quite funny, I'm kind of glancing down at the speedo. I don't know why I bother really, because I can see the rev counter, that's the central gauge. The speedo in this car, between 40 and 80 miles an hour. I haven't got a clue how fast we're going. The steering wheel's just in the way, sadly, so who knows? But I can tell you I'm doing 3,000 revs quite accurately, so... but yes, one of those cars where you'd have to have a little peek underneath if you want to see how quickly you're going. Because it's a well-sorted car, you can drive it, and although it's a classic, you know, this is, what are we now, 40 years old. But, you know, we're driving on the road, and other road users won't be thinking, oh, bless, we'll, you know, pull out, and, you know, we're competing with traffic on equal terms, which is good to see. We obviously don't have things like ABS brakes, so it's cadence braking. But the braking on this, they are servo-assisted brakes, but it's not overly servo-assisted. Some cars you get in and you just kind of touch the brakes, and it's really difficult to, you're almost over-braking all the time. With this, you know, you can just touch the brakes and you'll get a little bit of a braking power just to settle the car down if you want to, or if you know, put your foot on the brakes, you'll lock the wheels up, and you will lock the wheels up, because, you know, there isn't ABS, so it's down to you to cadence brake and to use your foot properly. That's, you know, nice manageable acceleration. It's not that kind of my brain is, you know, 100 yards backwards and it's, you know, I'm at the same speed as the car, if that makes sense. And I think all too often cars, you know, the modern supercar, I think it's outgrown the driver in many respects, and that's, you know, why I'm just having a little look and seeing, you know, what I think you need. I think, you know, these kind of uber powerful things, you know, it's bragging rights, and it's 0 to 60 in this time, and it's how many horsepower, but if people are being honest with themselves, you know, A, do they need that sort of performance, and B, are they capable of dealing with it? And I think in most cases the answer is no. Certainly, you know, I'll stick my hands up and say, you know, do I need 500 horsepower? Do I need 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds? You know, no, I don't. You know, this is, I think, 0 to 60. I'm guessing it's going to be a bit under 6 seconds. I can't remember the figure, but it's fine. You know, it does kind of exactly what I need it to. And in terms of top speed, again, we're on the road. You know, we're not on the autobahn. We're not racing anywhere. And you know, it's yeah, very, very capable. a very interesting car we've just gone past there. I suspect he's just getting ready to do a little acceleration test in it. I really enjoyed that. As I alluded to in the GT3 video and kind of said, you know, when I started this, I kind of almost struggle to put into words why I think this is so special. I've driven loads and loads of 911s, and we all have here. And so for a car to have us all kind of singing its praises, yeah, you know, in terms of it's partly the fact that it's lightweight, the cage inside's nice, that gives it rigidity, but the suspension is just really, really intelligent. You know, it's kind of firm but not aggressive. It's not jarry. It's just, yeah, as kind of Matt said, you know, when we're in the car, it's a car you want to get up early on a Sunday morning to take for a drive. And you know, we were also kind of discussing values and so on, and values is always a very difficult thing, and it's a kind of different people have different thresholds to money and so on. But I think if you want something that's a little bit different, you know, you go down the route of, let's say, the Singers and things like that, and they are just astronomical money these days, and you know, kind of under £100,000 for something that is you actually enjoy driving and want to drive, and you know, is kind of done well. I think it starts being quite difficult in these classic cars now. But that's as I say, I love it. You know, it's a one-off. It's not something kind of we're ever going to see again. And to try and recreate it again, when you look at the time involved and the kind of the components, you know, I think these cars, you always get the best value when kind of someone else has done the work, and also you can get in it and drive it. You haven't got to wait for, you know, a year to do all the work. You know, I'm in the middle of my 964 RS sort of restoration, and you know, it always drags on, takes longer than you think, just because it does, and people not let you down, but just other things jump in the way and so on. But yeah, so that's really special. You know, 3-litre SC. We've talked a bit, as I say, about the car, a bit about the classic Porsches, and then, you know, where the fits in. So yeah, a slightly unusual car, and so definitely worth a film. Hope you enjoyed it and you found it useful. As always, if you've got any questions, you know, put them in the comments section, and you know, when I get a moment, we'll respond. And you know, I suspect you probably want some specifics in relation to this car, and if you do, you know, stick it in the comments, and I'll try and respond if I can. In the meantime, if you subscribe, you'll see when our new videos come out. And yeah, it's starting to get a bit cold in the UK, so the roads are a bit slippier, and you know, the summer is, well, it's probably faded away now. We're into autumn. But yeah, so stay safe, look after yourselves. Hope you are enjoying your Porsches if you're out on the road. And I'm Henry, we're 911 Virgin, Porsche people in Uxbridge. Goodbye.